The evolution of autonomy. That's what we're talking about. Autonomous machinery on your farming operation in this episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
Welcome to XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve podcast, where real farmers share real insights and real results to help you improve your farming operation. And now, here's your host, Damian Mason.
Hey there, welcome to another fantastic episode of XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve. I got a good one for you today because, you know, we're going to geek out on machinery. You're a farmer, you love machinery. Let's face it, we've all been to Louisville for the Farm Machinery Show, and you just get excited about seeing it. Yeah, we like the old stuff, and everybody loves an old John Deere 4020, but who doesn't like the newest, latest, and coolest? We're talking about autonomy on your farming operation. I've got Johnny Verell from XtremeAg, and I've got Michael Porter from John Deere, and we're talking about autonomy, how it's used on Mr. Verell's farm, where it was a few years ago and where it's going to go in the future. Johnny, you're kind of excited. You've got the deal set up. You got what, 3 combines that run on Verell farms, and then you've got your grain carts. Autonomy is helping you be more prosperous and use less human resources, right?
That's right. I mean, it's amazing how much things have changed just in the last few years, especially when you look at how the combine's getting to be more and more efficient with the help of the grain carts being able to talk to the combine. So, you know, you got to look at it as you're driving through the field and unloading, they're talking and they're, you know, basically the combine's driving the grain cart tractor, but also the grain cart tractors are able to see which combine's full, because at night and stuff when we're running, a lot of times we're running 3 or 4 combines in the same field. They can't tell which combine's full. They can see lights flickering and stuff like that, but it actually shows them on the screen where the combine is, who the driver is. I mean, it really helps the grain cart guys know where they need to go next.
Yeah, so when you've got multiple combines working in the field, then it's not just, I got to go catch this one because he got on the radio. You're going to know because of the autonomy. But like I said, that grain cart doesn't even have to have a driver, and that's the exciting part. So do you have headless horsemen out there? Do you have a tractor that's running around without a person behind the wheel?
No, we're not to that point yet. We still have drivers in there, but basically when it's so dusty and stuff at night, when we're running, especially harvesting soybeans, you really can't see what you're doing during the day with all the dust. At night, when the wind stops, you can't see anything. You're in a dust storm. The combine literally controls the grain cart, puts them into the exact spot, and then from there, the combine driver can move the grain cart forward, back, left, right. And that's where we're at today. We know the future is going to be more and more autonomous features, where there's still a driver in there, and, you know, the combine's controlling the grain cart even more probably. But as of today, I still have drivers in my grain carts.
Michael Porter, I've been hearing about this. I got to be honest. I heard about this at the Farm Science Review in Columbus, Ohio, almost a decade ago, that we're going to have headless horsemen. We're going to have driverless tractors. And I'm like, great, this should be here. I got to tell you, I think it didn't come as quickly as it needed to. What's been the holdup about it, and when are we going to get there? When is it going to be that Johnny doesn't even have to have guys in those tractors with the grain carts?
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot that goes into it. I mean, there's obviously their big machinery, and safety is probably the biggest thing that, you know, when we're trying to talk about autonomy and adopting it on farms, got to make sure it's safe, got to make sure it works. Big, you know, expensive equipment. We obviously don't want to damage anything as it goes through, but we're making really, really big iterations now, and I'd say it's coming even faster moving forward than it has in the past. And so, you know, today we have, I guess you're calling them headless horsemen, but we call them autonomous tractors out there doing tillage today. So we've got tractors that farmers take to the field, drop off, have their boundaries and all that mapped, and start the machine, and it goes and does their tillage work for their entire field without an operator in the cab.
Michael, I'm looking at the calendar. It's October. I was doing a little Legend of Sleepy Hollow reference just for the fun of it. But yes, headless horseman. Okay, so, and I'm not being mean, but let's face it, we started hearing about this 10 years ago. We saw the autonomous machines as recently as, you know, doing stunts or, you know, trials, if you will, 8 years ago. It's going to get there, and it's necessary because, you know, you've got a labor shortage still out here, or qualified labor, but there is the reality that Johnny's not too keen on taking a $500,000 piece of equipment and then just, you know, letting his cell phone run it. So, Johnny, when does it happen? When are you going to see this happening? When will it be that there's nobody in the tractor seat?
Yeah, so where we're located at in West Tennessee, our field sizes are so small. We have terraces everywhere. I know the terrace is kind of a hurdle right now with them for what I've been hearing. But, you know, the way I see it is they're starting in baby steps. You know, on the tillage, they're having to figure out how to automate the depth of the tillage. The grain carts, they're having to figure out how to fill the grain cart. I know they're working on all that kind of stuff from what I've been seeing. So they're actually working on those things today. So once they get these things perfected, taking the dryer out will be a lot easier, but you got to be able to figure out how to maintain your depth and stuff like that when you're doing that fall tillage, because isn't there a couple of different tillage tools right now that actually have the option? Is that right?
Yeah. Most of our tillage lineup now is what we call it. We call it true set, but yeah, it's prescription type tillage adjusted from the cab, and our system you set the depth and it'll do whatever it takes to maintain that depth. Whether mud gets built up on the tires or you get to a soft spot and it tries to go deeper, it'll constantly adjust that as you're going through the field. But what Johnny said right there was pretty spot on. It's baby steps, and we call it automation moving into autonomy. So we're trying to automate as many of the steps, whether it be tillage or harvest, to make it easier, so that when full autonomy comes, he knows what to expect and how it's going to react. I mean, he's probably seen it, with the machine sync on how that tractor moves, how it feels. Right. When the true autonomous portion of that comes without the operator, he'll know what to expect. And so, like I said, baby steps as we kind of move up that automation ladder. Right.
Yeah. I mean, to go from everything's an evolution, right? From the two-cylinder tractor with steel wheels to where we are today. By the way, Johnny's kind of concerned about letting his tractors go driverless because of the terrain and terraces and curvy fields. Between you and me, Michael, last year he had an operator and they flipped over a planter just sitting on a road. So I don't know how driverless could be doing a whole hell of a lot worse than what he already has. They flipped over a planter just sitting on a road. I don't know, man. I think I'd probably take my gamble and go driverless. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, well, it's hard to fire somebody if there's nobody in the cab, baby. But I think these things are very important. So when you come help me harvest, I don't have to worry about what you're going to tear up, because the tractor and the combine are going to take care of themselves.
Yeah, so tell me about these things, Michael Porter. And see, he likes it when I wise apple about things like that. He likes being reminded that several $100,000 piece of equipment was damaged going right into his most important time of his year, planting season, because it flipped over on a road. He likes when I bring that up. Machine sync. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think Johnny explained it pretty well, but basically it's where the combine kind of takes control of that tractor during grain cart, loading from the combine. So that tractor, as it approaches the combine, the driver of the combine kind of has an area identified where once that tractor comes into it, the control shifts from the operator of the tractor over to the combine to unload the grain. So they can bump it forward or speed it up, slow it down, move it left, move it right to fully fill that grain cart. Because in the combine seat, it's a lot of times a lot easier to see into that grain cart, camera on the spout, things like that. It's a lot harder for the grain cart operator. So trying to make it easier, so even if you don't have an expert running that grain cart, it still looks, you can still fully fill that grain cart.
And you're using that right now. That's happening right now.
Yeah. We've had that for quite a few years. And control of the grain cart using the combine.
The combine operator does it, or the combine itself does it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So the combine itself is sending signals to that tractor to hold its location. And if you speed up that combine automatically tells that tractor to speed up to match my speed. But then the operator input is, hey, this is where I want that grain cart to be. So if I want that grain cart to speed up or move forward so I can fill the back of the grain cart, that's manually done by the operator of the combine signaling that tractor. Yep.
So the first thing we're going to eliminate is going to be the driver of the grain cart. When do we eliminate the driver of the combine, Johnny?
I think it's several years off for me. We'll see.
Okay, so the combine's going to keep a human in it. The grain cart's not. You talked about tillage. Have you done any of this with tillage, or is that more of a thing if I have a square 160-acre field?
Well, we don't do much tillage, so it just hasn't been a thing for us yet. So
right. Is there anything else that you're using autonomy in automation, verging on autonomy at Verell Farms?
Well, I think it all started back, I was thinking about when did we start doing auto steer. So like the 90s, you were doing dropping foams and you see where to spray, right? Well, then in the early 2000s, you were doing light bars. Mid 2000, auto steer came out. Now we're doing auto path. So that way we get repeatability, and that's going to tie into the combine. That way the combine knows exactly where the 12 or 16 rows is supposed to be going in at. And so that, like I said, everything's kind of in baby steps of how they're coming out with all this new data and all this new technology. But AutoPath is really, really interesting how it works. It really helps you speed up the best way to plant a field, the best way, that way the sprayers come back in there and run the same lines every year. So I think it's all kind of working on top of each other, but you get into the machine sync, dang, it's pretty neat. I mean, it throws a square box out there, and when that tractor gets inside that square box, it'll make a sound. The tractor driver hits the resume auto steer button. It's got a home point stuck out underneath that grain, underneath the auger of that combine, and it's pulling right underneath there. So, but it all started in steps, and here we are now. And I mean, like you said, the next few years, there's no telling what they're going to be able to do just with the automation on the machine sync piece itself.
Michael, you've got something called AutoTrack automation, then AutoTrack implement guidance. Have we just talked about those two things, or are these two things that we haven't quite visited about?
No, he got on pretty good. I mean, it's like you said, baby steps. The implement guidance and stuff is, when AutoTrack started was putting the tractor on a guidance line. But in reality, do we care where the tractor is as much as we care where the planter is? And so like implement guidance is where we actually we're putting the planter or whatever implement behind it on that guidance line and maintaining, so that way we know where all the rows are, versus, hey, the tractor's on the guidance line, but maybe it's getting pulled a little bit to the left or pulled a little bit to the right and draft, and so that's a start there. And then I think the second one you talked about is turn automation, getting to the end of the field, slowing down, picking up that implement, making that turn and coming back into the row. Now we can automate that. So an operator in the cab during planting season or tillage gets to the end of the row, they're not changing what they're doing. They're sitting there monitoring the job quality, but they're not actually doing all that. And a lot of that goes back to the initial guidance track that we created, AutoTrack, but now moving into AutoPath, what Johnny was talking about there. That's what all of our autonomy is built on. Our autonomous tillage solution and all our future autonomous solutions, they're built on this AutoPath guidance planning that we've created, where you know exactly the best, it's projecting the best way to farm that field, and then it's creating guidance lines across that entire field.
So give us a thing here from the farmer's perspective. The person listening to this, Johnny, is saying, hey, that's all cool. I know I like to geek out about equipment, et cetera, but why does this matter to me? How can I use it? Okay, eventually we take a person out of the seat. That's manpower. That's human labor. That's an issue. We got that. The guidance stuff, it helps you farm better because of nutrient placement, or what's
it does, but it also speeds up. It kind of helps you figure out the fastest way to plant a field. And then also when it does that, when you put the receiver on the planter and have implement guidance, it turns around and tells that sprayer exactly where it needs to be running. So you've got auto steer there where it's running straight up and down through the field. But if you can get some planter drift, this allows that to come into play and actually keep that sprayer, even if the planter's drifting a little bit, dead center of that row, so you're not running over the corn and stuff. Then you turn around and take that to the combine at harvest. That combine can open the field up, cut the end rows off, and that combine knows exactly where to go in to start opening that field up, so you're on matching rows all the way across.
I want to ask each of you, because we got listeners all over the North America that listen to this. All right, where Johnny is, he doesn't have a lot of hills and curves. It's not like Kelly Garrett, but he does have a lot of winding edges. Is this more important for someone like him, or the person? In other words, is this a better application? Does he get more utility out of it, or does the farmer in Saskatchewan that's got a square mile, 640 acres that's square and there's no, which one benefits more from where all this technology takes you in terms of the steer and all that? Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both, and the reason I say that, we got to get you through a few hurdles, as far as the automation, as far as the driverless thing with the terraces and stuff, I think. But we started out with our farm, we're going to make it work. So we went in and RTK'd all of our boundaries and got exact boundaries. You need to do that. And once you do that, you can actually make the planter snap the AV line that's a curve track around the end of the field off that boundary. So that takes it where you're not having to freehand drive that first pass. It's automated. It's already there. So I would just say, looking at it, I think it's a fit for everywhere. I think the Midwest, where it's square and flat, that's definitely an easier play for it. But even here where we're located at, it's a big deal too, because you get those exact boundaries. It can help you all throughout the year once you get those boundaries right. And it takes a little time to get the boundaries correct. We took a gator and we RTK'd every one of them. And yeah, it takes a long time to go around some of these fields we got, but you get it done, they're there forever and they're saved. And if you like the lines you've got them forever.
Here's how he just said that. I think he was sucking up to John Deere. He says, we took the Gator. He didn't say we took the Ranger. We didn't take the Kawasaki Mule. He said, we took the Gator around. By the way, he said RTK. What's that mean? What's RTK?
So it's the highest level of accuracy from our receivers. So we've got RTK radio, which is I think what Johnny was talking about there, where it's referencing satellites, but also a stationary radio tower to pick up exactly where it is in the field. We also now have what we call SFRTK, or satellite accuracy, but think sub-inch accuracy, repeatable year over year. So with under an inch. Yep.
All right. So we said I teased that we're going to talk about the evolution of autonomy and automation. We talked about where it was, and Johnny went from dropping foam to now the sprayer knows where it is. And some of us are old enough to remember all that. That's cool. And yeah, auto steer became this. And we talk about where we're going. Eventually, we take drivers out of the seat. The person that's listening to this that doesn't have autonomy or any of these automations, let's talk about their personal evolution. What do they need to know, and how do they start? And I guess I'll take it from both of you, from the product guy, Michael, and then from Johnny, the practical on farm. Like, what's the first thing that person should do that's, maybe they only farm 600 or 800 acres, and they're like, I'm going to start trying to up my game on this automation, but I don't want to break the bank. Kind of help them.
Yeah. So start with, I think, one of the first steps that we talk about, he talked about is boundaries and auto track. I mean, that's a big one. I mean, that's one of the easiest things I think to kind of pencil out for a customer is if I don't run over the rows that I've already gone down and I'm not overlapping and things like that, there's a true cost savings to my inputs, right? So that's a really good place to start. And today that's usually some sort of a receiver and a display to do, your auto track. And then along with that, you start to get some of the documenting that data and that yield to help you make decisions. So to me, that's really the first step, is what we call our core technology. It's a display and a receiver. And if we can get those, if customers get into those, it unlocks a lot of value really, really quickly with things like auto track, but then documentation. And then it connects for John Deere customers and other customers out there to our operations center, which is our kind of cloud-based solution, but allows them to start documenting what they're doing.
Yep. And
then figuring out what impact that has on their yield and down the road, and helps them make decisions. So to me, that's the first place to start is start with auto track and start with documentation.
Johnny Verell, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I would agree with 100%. A neat thing is kind of on the automation, the section control that we have on planters. So you got individual row shutoffs, all that plays in together. A lot of farmers already have that, but you go to the same thing on the ExactApply on the sprayers. So you got that. But one thing I was going to throw out there, Damian, as you start having this automation in the future, whether it's driverless people or, a tractor without a driver in it, you got your waterways going through the field and all that. When you get these boundaries put in there, that planter shuts off that boundary. So you got to have stuff like that, because you're not going to have a person in there manually doing that no more, or making sure you stay out of the waterway spraying. So it's pretty neat how all this stuff's going to tie together. And you got to think in the last, almost 20 years, how far auto steers came now. It's unreal what it's done.
I don't mind when they plant through my waterways. I get a little prickly when they spray through my waterways. That's always the one that bothers me. All right, so that's the first thing, is auto track, and that's a display, and it's some technology. And I can put this on only John Deere, or I can put it on anything.
You can put it on just about anything. Yep. And we have what we call our XtremeAg Essentials, which is exactly that. It's a display, it's a receiver, and it's also a modem to help send that data to the cloud. And you can put that in, green equipment, other equipment, old equipment, new equipment.
Okay, and I can do that. I stick this in my main tractor, my combine, and my sprayer. Yes?
Yeah. Sure.
So if I'm out here and I'm a smaller scale farmer, and I put it in those three things, and then it all ties together, and then it connects, and I use my phone or my laptop or something to get all the data. Yes?
Yeah.
All right. Then what's the next thing after that? If I want to go to the next phase after that, you sold me on that, and I'm like, okay, 3 years later, I'm ready to go to the next thing. Then what?
Yeah. So the nice thing is you got the hardware part done. So now it's how do we start unlocking that next level of software? Things like Johnny talked about there, section control is obviously you can do that in that first step, but with the same hardware, but then unlocking things like what we call our G5 advanced package, which is AutoPath, that implement guidance, some of those. And again, some of them may take another receiver, it may take some of that, but it's still the same hardware, just unlocking that next level of precision. Maybe that customer, when they bought the XtremeAg Essentials kit, maybe they had our basic level of guidance, couple inches of accuracy, 2 to 3 inches of accuracy. Now they want to get to sub-inch accuracy. The nice thing is a lot of that's through software. We call it our advanced software. That's kind of the next step in what we call our technology stack, our pyramid. Yep.
You're using that, right, Johnny?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. In your evolution of automation toward autonomy, any hiccups? Do you want to share with anybody from the farmer perspective, like, hey, we did this and it cost us a day of learning, or we did this and we screwed up and did this? Is there anything you've done wrong? Any hiccups? Any words of warning?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you work with your dealer and get all the updates, updates seem to be the things that always cause the issues. But when we went to the auto path and stuff like that, we didn't get quite the receivers updated just right. We were having some issues with that. Once we got all the updates in there, everything started firing on all cylinders and everything was good. Because you got to realize how much data you have coming from that planter, and you got basically individual row guidance lines. Okay. And you got an implement receiver back there that's actually driving the tractor. So it's a lot of data coming back and forth. It's probably going to be amazing what they do in the next few years as far as keeping up with that data. But it's a lot of stuff that you just need to make sure you got everything in place at the beginning that's updated correctly.
Michael, you're nodding your head. So he didn't say there's a hiccup. He didn't say, and then granted, he's all about adopting and adapting new technology and all that. No big hiccups, no big problems. Just a matter of managing all the information.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I think that's a big part of it. I also think, doing it in the steps that Johnny's talked about also makes it more consumable. There's a lot of times where maybe a customer hasn't done some of the basics like boundary mapping that, you talked about, and maybe they don't have a good boundary set. And then they try to go straight into maybe the auto path, and then they're upset with the auto path because the boundaries, maybe weren't drawn the way that they probably should have been. So what I like to say is if they put in the time and the effort with some of the inputs, those inputs being the boundaries and time, doing their offsets, doing their calibrations and updates on the receivers, things go a lot better. But also doing it kind of like Johnny said, is working kind of up that complexity makes it a lot easier than trying to jump from nothing straight into something like AutoPath.
Got it. All right. Where do we go? Where do you go? We're recording this in October of 2024. When I talk to you 2 years from now, Johnny Verell, what are you going to say? Remember when we did that thing? Now look.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're retrofitting, you need to reach out and try to get a game plan in place as you order new equipment. A lot of it's already in there. You just got to get it unlocked. So it's kind of whichever way you want to go. But you can do every bit of this with 10-year-old equipment as long as it's been upgraded to where it needs to be from a software or from a receiver standpoint.
Yeah. So, yeah, don't be intimidated. Am I breaking the bank to do this, Mr. Porter? Am I breaking the bank to do this? Be honest with me.
Yeah, no, I'd say, again, when we start talking about, if we start at the basics with something like our Precision Ag Essentials, we're talking a couple $1,000s to get started with that system. John Deere and our new strategies around lower upfront cost, getting customers into it. Yeah. And then it gets better over time with those updates that Johnny talked about. And then, we start getting into the advanced software and stuff, it's incremental cost. And then even, our full autonomy, I think a lot of people think I've got to have a brand new tractor and a brand new, all these camera systems and things. But, we're going to take it back to older equipment and this full-on autonomous tractor solution that we're talking about with that drives itself. That'll go on a tractor for tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's going to be what he talked about. It's our precision upgrade kits. We're going to put it onto older equipment and put it on newer equipment as well from the factory if that's what they choose.
That's fantastic. You got anything for me on the way out the door here, Johnny Verell?
No, I think everybody just needs to really see how this can make you more efficient. And in the next few years, efficiency is going to be what helps us keep us profitable. So
I like the idea of it as an evolution. I mean, you've been on the evolution ever since you came back from Murray State and, with the farm, but so has everything, right? So if you're not in on the automation leading to autonomy, it's not that overwhelming. I mean, you've made me convinced here, Michael, and the dollars aren't that, it's not a bank breaker.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of the tractor, Damian. I guess go out with this. It's not like you're going to have a cabless tractor.
Yeah.
That's not what they're coming out with. They're going to have a kit that goes on a tractor that we drive every day. And when it's able to be used, you use it. When it's not, you still drive it normally. I think 2 years ago, everybody thought it was going to be cabless tractors. That's not how it's going to be.
Yeah, well, like I said, at the Farm Science Review 8 years ago, they just took it was not Deere, it was maybe a competitor to them that just came out with a tractor and they just took a blowtorch and cut the cab off, and that's why I call it the Headless Horseman. But the reality is that's not what's going to be at all, because then it makes it so you can't operate it when you want to do something not with autonomy, right?
Right.
100% use it for autonomy when it makes sense for you. Your busy seasons, use it, right? Have it stay in front of your planter tractor running tillage. You're running the planter, but then maybe you do catch up and you need to go and you want to go do some more tillage or the grain cart. When you've got operators, great, use them. But when you don't, that's when autonomy really starts to help out, is when you are short on that work or that labor, or you have something else you need to be doing.
Yeah. Well, like Johnny's point was that it's basically by chopping the cab off, it made it so it was singular use versus, and that's going the wrong direction. If we're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this piece of equipment, let's make sure it can be autonomous at some times and not the others. Talked about the evolution of automation into autonomy. That's the subject of this. We're doing a 4-part series with Deere here at XtremeAg in 2024. I'm sure there'll be more in 2025, but what we're talking about in this one was autonomy. Other subjects that you can go and check out. Precision upgrades. This very thing about taking a 10-year-old piece of equipment and using new technology to make it new again. Because let's face it, down economy and agriculture, you got to watch your pennies, and you can do that, and Deere's going to help you do that. Another one we're covering is about the Operations Center. We're going to explain the Operations Center. So you can go and check out all these videos. If they're not released yet, they will be. Check out that one. And then also we're going to talk about See and Spray technology with a couple of farmers that have used it. So you can see that. So anyway, it's a 4-part series with Deere. Check them all out, and you can check out all the other great stuff at XtremeAg. It's a free library of information to help you farm better. It's really what it does. We've been doing these Cutting the Curve podcasts for more than 3 years, hundreds and hundreds of episodes, not to mention hundreds of videos from people like Johnny at his field day, and it's information you can use, all free at XtremeAg.farm. Until next time, thanks for being here, Michael Porter.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking time away from harvest, Mr. Johnny Verell.
Thank you, Daniel.
Till next time, I'm Damian Mason with XtremeAg's Cutting the Curve.
That's a wrap for this episode of Cutting the Curve. Make sure to check out XtremeAg.farm for more great content to help you squeeze more profit out of your farming operation.